After this very interesting presentations of my predecessors, I'm very pleased that I can also contribute a civil society's perspective to the discussion. And in my impulse, I will mainly focus on the chances and risks that we attribute to green hydrogen and its use, and also draw conclusions from the observations that we made. Let me now first come to the chances and opportunities. So what we've heard before and what is pretty clear, and science and scientific studies and scenarios show it, we will not reach climate neutrality by at latest 2050 without the use of hydrogen. In fact, the more ambitious greenhouse gas reduction efforts get, speaking of minus 100% instead of minus 80%, for example, the earlier and the more hydrogen we need in the system. This is mainly because green hydrogen provides the opportunity to decarbonize also hard to abate sectors and technologies that are hard to electrify, mainly in aviation sector, but also the shipping, as we heard before, and in industry. And electrolyzers make it possible to introduce the valuable renewable energies also in sectors beyond the electricity grid. We also need electrolyzers to compensate peak loads of renewable energy generation, and it enables long-term storage of electricity in form of the gaseous energy carrier hydrogen. And by that, the renewable energy can be stored and reused in times when there is little renewable energy generation. This helps to make the energy system more flexible and stabilizes power networks in an increasingly volatile system that is mainly based on PV and wind generation. Another advantage that we see lies within the better transportability of hydrogen compared to electricity. Hydrogen can be transported via long distances, and this creates the opportunity to build up an international market for green hydrogen and other low carbon energy carriers. For current energy exporters like, let's say, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, this provides the incentive to gradually shift their export portfolios from fossil fuels to renewable energies, but it also provides the chance to build up new trade relations and international corporations around green hydrogen. In our point of view, this provides the opportunity to develop the current and the future energy relations further towards real eye-level climate partnerships in which the partners jointly work towards reaching climate goals and the Paris Agreement. If we manage to shift from sheer energy relations to climate partnerships, this can give new impetus to global energy transition. Next slide, please. But we, as I mentioned, also see some challenges and risks coming with the production and the use of green hydrogen. First, hydrogen does not automatically lead to greenhouse gas reductions, as we've also heard before. It very much depends on the electricity used in the process. The German research institute Öko-Institut has calculated that green hydrogen only is beneficial for climate protection if the electricity applied is close to 100% renewable energies. Also, in the first hand, electrolyzers constitute additional consumers to the electricity system and can therefore lead to the paradox situation that more fossil fuel is used to satisfy this additional demand, and that the phase-out plans for example, coal plants are delayed. This would be counterproductive for global warming and can only be solved if renewables expansion is sped up, which is maybe also the link to the first session where it was about this issue. Also, I have to point out that in the conversion process of renewable energies into hydrogen, but also its derived products like ammonia or green methane or other products, this is also associated with high energy losses, speaking of 30 to 40% in the case of green hydrogen, and of 40 to 55% for green chemicals and synfuels. For example, to produce the amount of kerosene that is today used in German aviation sector, we would need like 270 terawatt hours of electricity. And also the German chemical industry revealed that it would need about 685 terawatt hours electricity to become carbon neutral in 2050 when it relies heavily on electricity-based processes. And 685 terawatt hours, this is more or less the whole amount of electricity used and consumed in Germany today. So this makes clear that the use and production of green hydrogen poses substantial and additional stress on renewable energy expansion, and hence also on the land that is needed for the installation of the power plants. Also, I shortly want to mention that new metals and sometimes also conflict materials are used in electrolyzers, but also the combustion engines like fuel cells, for example, platinum, iridium, and yaltan. And as they are not yet sufficiently bound in economic material cycles, they have to be extracted via primary production, which is very resource and energy intensive, often goes hand in hand with environmental depletion and human rights violations. And we also face other challenges. I've mentioned the potential land use conflicts, and we also have to look at the water being used in the electrolysis process, which can become a problem because some of the sweet spot countries are already facing water scarcity, and this is getting even more intense with ongoing climate crisis. So why I'm pointing these issues out is to make clear that the amount of sustainably produced green hydrogen is limited, and that we thus need to use and apply green hydrogen in a responsible way. I think I'm skipping the blue and turquoise hydrogen issue as we are focusing on green hydrogen, but let me just shortly mention that both are based on methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas and thus poses a risk to climate protection, and that it also brings about the risk of locking ourselves into the fossil fuel world instead of using now this window of opportunity to initiate real change towards a 100% renewable future. Next slide, please. So in order to conclude, to fully benefit from the greenhouse gas reduction potential that green hydrogen brings about, renewable energy expansion is key and precondition. There is just no green hydrogen without renewable energy. Also, I've mentioned the limitations to the production of sustainable and green hydrogen. This is why we urge for a responsible and targeted use of hydrogen instead of a fully technology neutral approach. Hard to abate sectors need to be prioritized, but still even in aviation, shipping and industry, we cannot avoid initiating real and deep change. A sheer fuel switch will not be sufficient, and further demand reduction, efficiency measures and electrification measures need to be undertaken and applied. In order to address the social and environmental risks that I've mentioned, we need an ambitious set of sustainability criteria that also takes social and governance issues into account. And also we need a reliable certification system so that the advantage of green hydrogen compared to fossil fuel-based hydrogen gets guaranteed and also seen by the consumers. Yes, we also think that only green hydrogen can play a long-term role in the system, which is why we need a prioritization of support for the green hydrogen pathway. And finally, I want to point out that we need to start now to build up new partnerships and cooperations for green hydrogen around the world, and to jointly develop common perspectives on green hydrogen and together with the current and future energy exporters. We need to progress fast, share the learning curve, and make sure that the production and use of green hydrogen is in line with climate neutrality and the Paris Agreement. Thanks, that's from my side.